Hey, it's Rocky. Welcome to Richer Soul. Today's guest is Sonny Burns, who lives life like nobody else so he can live like nobody else. That's kind of the Dave Ramsey way. Imagine it's 12 months from now, and you've achieved your major life goals. How does it feel to be in the best shape of your life? To wake up energized, excited about the day? To have great relationships and friends who support you and propel you forward? How does it feel to have an excess of money, to be able to make the choices you want? To be fearless and open to trying new adventures? Imagine being connected to the universe and it providing everything you desire. It's possible over time, and your past does not dictate your future. The only thing holding you back from this vision is you. It's time to take control of our thoughts and use them to our advantage. Welcome to Richer Soul, where we achieve our dreams and bring balance to health, wealth, relationships, time, and spirituality. If you have not had a chance to listen to episodes 1 through 9, I encourage you to go back and listen to the framework behind Richer Soul and how to create the life of your dreams. You can also find all the show notes for this episode at richersoul.com. While you're there, you can sign up for a monthly email where I share the best articles I read this month, let you know about upcoming episodes, and share a little wisdom. You can also listen to coaching calls under the Coaching Calls tab. I also share the most interesting articles I read every week on Facebook at facebook.com/Richer Soul. And there's also a Facebook group where you can ask questions and interact with other listeners. Today's quote is from T.E. Lawrence, Lawrence of Arabia. All men dream, but not equally. Those who dream by night in the dusty recesses of their mind wake up in the day to find that it was vanity. But the dreamers of the day are dangerous men, for they may act their dreams with open eyes to make it possible. Our guest today is someone who's living his dream. Before we meet Sonny, I want to answer a question I get from many people, which is, how much is enough in life? How do I know what my target number is to retire? The answer to that question is cash flow. How much do you need to spend in retirement to live the life you would enjoy? You may know some of those costs, and others you may just have to guess at. The other factor is health insurance, which can be a massive cost on your own. You also need to know if you're retiring early, what else are you going to do? We need to contribute, and while your job or current business may not be what you love, you have to find some income during your retirement can dramatically help to lessen how much you need. Plus, having purpose in retirement and something to give back is a lot more fun. Once you know how much you spend, it's simply taking that number and multiplying the yearly number by 25. This is based on an assumption of a 4% withdrawal rate. So if you need $40,000 to live in retirement, and don't forget, you have to pay taxes too, depending on where the money's coming from, you'd multiply that by 25 and get $1 million. So $1 million will give you the $40,000 you need for retirement. Now let's say it's $60,000 a year. Well, you could save more money, or maybe you could do some fun work to make the other $20,000, or do something like Sonny is, which is investing in real estate. The key is to know the numbers and figure out the combination of work, assets, possibly real estate, or something else to determine how much you'll need to make on a yearly basis. Too many people work too long at something they don't like because they never figured out the numbers. Take the time to know them. We'll discuss it a little bit more in today's episode. I met Sonny through a Choose FI meetup group. There are communities all over the country, and the world allows you to get together and learn about money from other people who are intentional about it. Sonny Burns is 28 and works full-time as a project engineer for the Department of Defense. He's happily married with 2 amazing little boys. Sonny is the founder of Famvestor.com, where he writes about financial independence and creating strong families. Together with his wife, they own rental properties with $1 million in assets and over $100,000 in gross rent. He enjoys the simpler things in life, like listening to books, running, biking, playing ultimate frisbee, and going on hikes with his family. Let's meet Sonny and learn a little bit more about him. Welcome to Richer Soul, Sonny. It's great to have you join us today.
Thanks, Rocky. It's great to be here. I'm excited.
As am I. So let's start at the beginning. What was it like when you were growing up, and how much did your family and school teach you about money?
Well, I felt like we grew up pretty poor. My parents were kind of church missionaries growing up. Well, before I was born, I guess they were doing church missionary work for a number of years. And then once they started having a family, there was really no solid financial foundation for them. I heard from my mom, we pretty much just grew up on Kraft mac and cheese and lived in this dingy basement apartment. And that's kind of how we were raised. And my parents, I feel like most of their lives were living just like paycheck to paycheck, trying to make it by. But I felt pretty blessed growing up because my parents truly loved each other. And you could see it every day. Like my parents, I've never seen them fight. But there was always, I felt like a little element of friction when it came to finances, just because we didn't have much money. And it just made life hard. Because of that, I felt like that gave me a lot of drive to kind of pursue finances and taught me a lot about savings and being frugal. But yeah, I guess money was tough. My parents went through bankruptcy when I was maybe 8 or 10 or something like that. They were playing in the stock market and the dot-com bubble happened. In terms of school, I feel like school taught me nothing about finances ever. From kindergarten all the way to college, never heard anything about finances, which I feel like is simply ridiculous and unacceptable.
It is. And I think it's changing a little bit in that they want to bring about more finance in schools. But the problem is if the person teaching it doesn't understand it, then they're not really going to be able to teach it well. And I get the feeling that it would be a massive undertaking because you'd literally have to change the behavior of the teacher before the teacher could properly share that subject matter. I mean, you can always teach the basics of budgeting and debt and what all those types of things are. But I guess even for a lot of people, that would probably be an excellent first step.
Right.
Growing up, did you feel like you were lacking anything? It sounded like you said you felt loved and everything was good. Do you have any regrets about that, or?
I'm grateful for the way I was raised because it's definitely shaped who I am today. I'm very happy with who I am, proud of what I've achieved and where I'm at. So it gave me that drive again. But yeah, I guess it was tough because we grew up a little later in life. From 5 years on, we moved to Fort Lee, New Jersey, which is like right across George Washington Bridge from New York City, and pretty affluent neighborhood there. And that just happened to be where we were. And we were renting a small apartment there, or it was a decent sized apartment. And then I just remember getting picked on at school because I would wear like the same shirt every day or things like that. And I guess like I knew I was poor and other people knew that too somehow. These little kindergartens know that I don't have the nicest shoes, just hand-me-downs. I guess I felt a little second class from that. I guess it was a little tough because of that.
And so as an adult, does that still haunt you or did you get over it? And the reason I'm asking these questions is especially parents who have money tend to overspend on their kids.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always nice to look at that longevity of saying, here's what I went through and here's how I turned out and what was really important to me, and kind of sharing that, because I think parents overspend and overspoil their kids sometimes.
Right. And I agree with you there. I feel like for me, we just hit a $500,000 net worth last month, actually, and I'm still driving a car with roll-up windows. So I guess I never got to the point where I want to pursue status symbols or anything like that. It wasn't like, oh, I was picked on because I was poor, so now I got to show everyone and become rich and flash it in their face or anything like that. I don't think it was that much of a negative per se, but I just wanted to create that same relationship my parents had, that love with their wife. And I feel that we have a super great relationship, me and my wife. But I also wanted to remove any of those friction points in that relationship just to make it even better. And that's why we pursued financial freedom.
What do you see as friction points in the relationship?
Take one of our tenants, for example. The husband's having a hard time finding a job. They just had their first baby. because of that, they're just, what are we going to do in 2 months if we can't make rent? And that's just like a constant friction point. Or it's like, hey, I want to go on vacation, but maybe we shouldn't go on vacation because we're going to go into debt. And I don't know. I feel like things constantly come up. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, it's wearing on you. It's wearing on your mind, on your brain, and then eventually to your relationship.
And that's true. Money can create quite a bit of strain and quite a bit of issues. So let's take a step back. You grow up, you get through high school, and you went off to college, correct? How did you figure that out, and how were you able to pay for that?
Growing up, my dad would always tell me college was the worst time of my life. I hated college. And if you want to go to college, you're going to have to fight me to go. And there's no way I'm paying for college for you. And the reason he said that is he got into a lot of alcohol and partying and drugs. And it just kind of was like, he told me like hell on earth for him. And then I guess he met the church he's involved with now and changed his life from there. But yeah, he told me just a party scene. And if you really want to go, you're going to have to fight me to go. I was pretty average student, or like a BC student earlier on. But then I had a really good fifth grade teacher who kind of transformed my life and really motivated me, and was straight A's from there on and motivated me to go towards college.
What did she do to motivate you?
Oh, she was intense. She was probably like the scariest teacher in the whole school. I memorized her driver's license. And whenever I saw her in the car in the parking lot, I'd be like, okay, I'm not going to the playground today. I'm going home. She was that scary. She did it because she really cared. And a lot of these teachers just don't care, but she cared. I guess she motivated me because I wanted to get good grades, because if I didn't, she'd hound me. She was just scary. And she taught me to love books. I was so used to all these boring school books. And then she got like these great best-selling novels that little kids love to read. And it taught me this love for reading. But also I developed good habits because I grew up with 3 other siblings. So it's 4 kids in this tiny apartment, loud house, could never get my homework done. So the way I did it was I started waking up early, right before school, 5 a.m., and started doing my homework as a 5th grader. And I did that every single weekday. Got up early, did my homework so I could make my teacher happy. And that habit continues today. This morning, I woke up at 4:50, especially once having kids, you know, that early morning is the only time I have to work on myself and develop my projects. Did that answer the question?
It does. You got through 5th grade and she taught you the love of learning. And then?
I really wanted to be financially successful. And I have always also been entrepreneurial, but I wanted that safety of a steady income and a good paying job. I figured to do that, I got to go to college. And I'm going to have to pay for college because my dad has made it clear since birth that he will not pay for my college. In order to do that, I need to get good grades and get good scholarships and pay my way, hopefully, through scholarships. So when it came time to go to college, in order to prepare in my senior year of high school, I knew I needed to get a job. So actually, in my junior year of high school, I got a job as custodian in my high school. And I worked as a custodian fixing chairs, scraping gum off chairs, waxing the floors, painting the walls, things like that. And I started to save enough capital to get my own transportation. A lot of my friends were getting cars, but insurance was like $2,000 a month for a little 18, 17-year-old. So I couldn't afford that, but I looked at motorcycles. So I got myself a motorcycle. They were a lot cheaper, and insurance was only $350 rather than $2,000, because my dad also made it clear I'm not going on his insurance plan and increasing his insurance. I got a motorcycle, and that gave me the transportation because I knew I wasn't going to do room and board at college because that's just super expensive, and usually scholarships don't pay for that. So I would commute to college. I ended up working at Taco Bell as a cashier. And honestly, I love that job, but I worked there for 6 months and I had an idea. My plan was to start flipping cars. It was something my dad had done earlier on in my life, just maybe 5 or 6 cars he had bought and sold. So it was just something that I thought I could do after buying that motorcycle because I bought it really cheap. And I knew the next day I could have sold it for 50% more than I bought it for. So I was like, oh, if I just really look at Craigslist and I find these used cheap deals, then I could sell them for profit and make money that way. But I needed capital. I had no capital. So my plan was I'm going to start working at Taco Bell. Once I have enough capital, I'm going to start this car flipping business. And that's what I did. I worked 6 months. And I gave my 2 weeks notice. The last day of my 6 months, I bought my first car that same day. And I bought that car for $1,350. It was 1999 Mitsubishi Mirage. I sold it 2 months later for $2,800. So double what I bought it for. I went on to buy 19 cars from there. And that's what funded my first 2 years of college. That and doing work study.
So where did you go to college?
I went to Stevens Institute of Technology, which is a very expensive school. I think it's like $34,000 a semester for tuition, something like that.
And did you get scholarships on top of that, or was it just flipping cars?
I had merit scholarships because I had pretty good GPA, pretty good grades in high school. But we had a lot of financial aid because, again, my parents did not make a lot of money. So financial aid, scholarships. It was also only 20 minutes from my home, so I could commute very easily on my motorcycle. I was like commuting in the rain, no matter what. I was taking my motorcycle. Good gas mileage, too.
How did this drive continue? I know we talked about your fifth grade teacher doing it, but now you're like 19, 20, you're going to college. It's not easy. I mean, you're paying your way through by flipping the cars, but how do you keep the motivation to just keep going through that?
Like I was saying earlier, I really loved the way my parents' relationship was, and I loved everything about that. And that's what I wanted. I wanted this great family. Because I felt like we were a great family, but I wanted to make sure to try to remove any of those obstacles and improve on what they did with my own family. And I felt like to do that, I needed a good job. I needed a good financial foundation that my parents never had to make my marriage and my life hopefully even better than what they were able to give me.
And so now we're a couple years through college, and then were you able to find some additional funding?
Yeah. I started interning because luckily I went to Stevens and they have a great co-op program, which is just internships built into their semesters. So rather than taking the 4 traditional years, I did 5 years through their co-op program, and like a couple semesters throughout the year, you intern at different companies in your field, and which I recommend to everyone. Like, I feel like when I was graduating, everyone who had done co-op internships, they all had jobs. Everyone else who had never done internships were all struggling to find jobs because, you do an internship, you have your foot in the door and you do a good job, they're going to want to hire you when you graduate. So anyway, I did the co-op program, and sorry, maybe I'm being too liberal with all these pauses, right? Because I'm going to rely on Simeon. Let me just gather my thoughts here. So I did the co-op program, and I co-opted at a Department of Defense Army research facility called Picatinny Arsenal, New Jersey, where there's 6,000 engineers who constantly tinker on Army projects, advancing armaments and weapons and ammo and things like that. And I interned there, and my supervisor at the time was like, hey, there's this great Department of Defense scholarship that you should apply for. It's called the DoD Smart Scholarship, and it pays full tuition and gives you $25,000 a year cash stipend in your pocket. And I'm like, okay, that sounds ridiculously awesome. So I applied and I got it. So I got that in my junior and senior year of college. And it paid full tuition. So I didn't have to worry about flipping cars anymore. I think I still did it just because it was pretty good money. And I was still doing work study too, because maybe I did stop doing I did start. I kept doing the work study as a machinist at my school. But I was getting $2,083 a month checks from the government just as a stipend to, I guess, help me focus on my studies and things like that. And so with this scholarship, in return, you're obligated to work for the government when you graduate. Every year you accept the award, you have to work a year for the government. So I accepted for 2 years, so I had to work for the government 2 years. But you get full salary, full benefits. And having interned there, I knew I wanted to work there anyway. It was such a great facility, such a great place to work.
You get out of college, right? You're debt-free, I'm assuming, at this point.
Yeah, positive net worth.
When you say positive net worth, was it a lot, a little, or?
The first 2 years, I did take out some federal loans. I did have maybe around $15,000 in loans, but I probably had like close to $40,000 in the bank from the 2 years of scholarship. So another ridiculous thing about this scholarship is they pay for the summer internship they want you to do, and they'll pay you $1,200 a week for interning on top of the $2,083 a month check. So you're getting $4,800 a month from the internship support payments plus the $2,083 a month. So you're making like $6,500 a month as a college student, which is equivalent to like a $70,000 salary from this scholarship in the summer months. So I was banking money, and I was able to graduate with around like $40K in my savings and things like that.
During this whole time, though, where were you living?
I was living at home, just commuting from home and just living with my parents at home.
And you never changed that, even though you had all of this income coming in, you maintained your extremely low cost of living.
Right. I don't know where I learned it, but I just learned to always live below your means. And I was just grown up. We did everything as cheaply as possible as a family, and was just taught frugal was the best way. And, I still believe that today. I love living frugally. I'm very grateful I married a cheap wife like myself, and we love being frugal and saving as much money as we can.
You got out of college. You had a positive net worth. You had to go work for the government for a couple of years, which they paid you well for.
Mm-hmm.
And then what?
I started working at a $50K salary, which started a little lower at the government, but they give you like $10K raises. I'm already at $99,927 a year salary, just under six figures.
How old are you now?
I'm 28 years old.
Okay, so this has all occurred within essentially the last 6 to 7 years.
Right.
People need perspective, so they understand this isn't something that happened 30 years ago.
Yeah.
This is relatively current day.
Yeah, I graduated in 2013 with my bachelor's and master's in mechanical engineering. I married my wife pretty early on, like only a couple of months after graduating college. 2 months after graduating, we had our wedding ceremony in 2013. She started as a teacher, so she was a public art school teacher. I was an engineer. We were both making around $50K, so that's $100K we were making.
Where are you living now?
I'm staying in my parents' house. My wife moves in, and you got to figure this is like a 4-bedroom house with just one bathroom. And my siblings are still there. So this is 9 adults in this 4-bedroom, 1-bath house. And we just had to share the bathroom. Sometimes I would just go to the backyard and pee because I was sick of waiting in the line for the bathroom. But we did this for like 2 or 3 years. Married couple making $100,000, but socking away like 50%, 70% of that because we were just paying my parents $500 a month for that little bedroom they gave us.
And I think people need to realize when you live in North Jersey and you're just outside of New York City, your cost of living is astronomical. If you had gone out to just rent a 1-bedroom apartment, how much would that have cost you?
Minimum probably would be $1,000, but that'd be like a really cheap apartment, a 1-bedroom. If you wanted something that was decent, it'd probably be at least $1,200 a month.
Okay. Just perspective on everything.
Right.
You're living at home, essentially, after being married in this tight house. And what happened next?
Right after getting into the SMART scholarship, I was getting these checks and I'm like, I just don't want these sitting in the savings. So I started learning about investing and doing stocks and things like that. So, I was starting to grow a pretty decent stock portfolio. I was lucky to buy Netflix back in 2011 and since grown 20 times over. But anyway, I got into stocks and then I started learning about like index funds and things like that. So I since got into that. But I was thinking, like, what else can we do with this money? And, we eventually want to have kids. My wife was homeschooled growing up, and I knew that her dream and, talking with her, it started becoming my dream too, was to homeschool our kids. So that meant living on one income. So I knew I wanted to develop passive income streams and things like that to support our one income family, but do it really well and still continue to grow our portfolio and things like that. So I guess I stumbled on a Bigger Pockets podcast, which is all about real estate investing. I was just looking at how do I buy a house? Because my parents at that point had bought their house. When I was 22, I think they bought their house. And I was looking at their income, their mortgage statement. And, they bought it for $250,000 and they had a mortgage on it. And I saw that from after 30 years, they'd actually be paying $750,000 or something, like triple the cost of the house with all those interest payments over 30 years. And I'm like, wow, that's so much wasted money. What if I could just save all my money and then buy it out cash? And, I had read Rich Dad, Poor Dad and things like that, like to use leverage and things to gain more money and buy more properties and things like that. But I guess I didn't really believe it. I've thought, if I buy my house outright, I can take the savings from those mortgage payments and just continue to grow my portfolio. So I was looking into how do I buy a house? And I stumbled on this podcast about investing. And I learned that there's different ways to house hack and things like that.
And so is that what you did, was house hack?
That's what we did. In 2015, 2 years after we got married, we bought our first property. And it was a 4-family property in Garfield, New Jersey, still just 15 minutes from New York City. So an expensive area. We had been looking for over a year, and then we finally found this property that worked.
Let's talk about it. What happened during that year that you were looking for the property?
During that year, I was continually building my education. I was reading real estate books and listening to podcasts and things like that. We were continuing to save money that we would need for the down payment and any renovation costs that came up. And we were looking at houses. We were looking, on things like Realtor.com, Zillow, and just looking for properties. I was learning how to analyze properties for cash flow because we wanted the property to be able to pay for itself using the rental income from the tenants that were existing, but also be able to live in one of the units and live for free, essentially. And my goal was to live for free and make a couple $100s a month. So be positive in net worth.
So you're spending your time, you're preparing, you're learning, and then you go out looking for deals. How hard was it to find a deal that worked for you?
It was pretty hard. We were looking pretty consistently, constantly on the internet looking for houses. And this over a year, we did put in some offers, but we would offer low because a lot of the times the deals just wouldn't cash flow. And there were some deals that were really good. And we were just kind of like, okay, we had been looking for a year. Let's put in an offer. And we put in offers $25K over asking. And still they'd come back with a rejection. Like, sorry, we got a full cash offer way over your bid. So sorry, we'll go to the next guy. And this was in 2015,
Because the market at that point was recovering. Everyone was starting to get into real estate, and there were a ton of cash buyers. Just even today, there are still a ton of cash buyers out there who are ready to move quick and who know the numbers and who can make these types of things happen. So you're in a competitive market, and you're looking at fourplexes, which the advantage of the fourplex is you can still get a traditional mortgage. Whereas when you look at anything larger than that, you have to go to commercial financing.
Right.
A fourplex works the same way a single family house does, and you go through the exact same process. It makes it a highly competitive market. I guess you finally found a house that met your needs and you were able to get an offer accepted. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so this particular house, this is the house I'm living in right now. It's a 4-family in Garfield. And what was special about this house, it was a real estate owned property. So it was owned by Wells Fargo, and Wells Fargo had this special program for the first 12 days. And a lot of REOs seem to have this. They were only going to allow owner occupants to put bids in. So non-investors, people who are going to live on the property. And so that's what we did. We put in an offer as an owner, as if saying that we would live in the property. And there was only 2 others that did that.
And so that's big. People say, how do I compete? And this is the struggle we have because we've been flipping a lot of houses. And what happens is a lot of times we would see a great house come up at a pretty reasonable price. And we're like, oh, I want in on that. And like you said, even though Wells Fargo was probably the agent on the property, behind the scenes, the government owned that property as part of all of the things that occurred in 2008. And it took years to go through all those foreclosures and inventory and everything else. As part of that, the government wanted to incentivize owners to be able to buy a house versus investors. And so there was that waiting period where you guys got first offering, you got first dibs, and they even had other incentives behind the scenes for those people that they would take a little bit less money so that a homeowner could live in a home. And it sounds like you were able to take advantage of that.
Right. And we went directly to the listing agent because we had heard a tip. You go with the listing agent, they get the seller's commission and the buyer's commission. So they make double commission. So they're going to want you to close on the deal so that they get double the money, essentially. So that was a tip we used. And we went with the listing agent and we were like, okay, so we're going to bid this. And they're like, yeah, there's 2 other offers. That's a good bid. And so we offered $480,000 for this 4-family, 12-bedroom, 4-bath, 4-unit, 4-family. So 3 bedrooms each unit.
That's a pretty big house. I mean, that's a $500,000 in real estate. And you are correct. So everyone has their own drivers. Real estate agents get paid a commission. And clearly, if they're getting both sides of the deal, they're more likely to fight for your offer and try and sell your offer to the bank versus somebody else's offer that they're only going to get half as much money. I mean, it's just human nature. It's what happens. And you're taking advantage of that. So you essentially bought now how old were you at this point? 26?
25.
25. You're 25 years old. You're buying $500,000 in real estate. Talk to us about the structure of the deal. How much did you have to put down?
It was really hard to find banks that seemed to finance a 3-family or a 4-family house. Everyone seemed to be okay with up to a 2-family duplex. But once we went to the 3-family, 4-family, like I had a PNC, I had an account with a credit union. They were all like, nope, sorry, we won't do a 4-family. But we found this small bank called Trustco Bank, which is they have a few branches in New York, Florida, and New Jersey, and they were allowing us to put just 10% down. So on a $500,000 house, that's only $50,000 you have to bring to the table, and also no PMI, which is kind of ridiculous. So we put 10% down and no PMI. And like I said, we offered $480,000, but we actually ended up buying it for $430,000. We only put $43,000 down.
So wait, how did you get from $480,000 to $430,000?
It took us a really long time to close. We put our offer in June, and then 4 months later in October, we closed. But what took a long time was we did an oil tank scan of the property, and we found an oil tank buried in the ground. And we told the bank, hey, you guys got to take this out because we're not going to buy this house with the oil tank in the property. And the oil tank scan did like drill. So it's under cement because the whole property doesn't have a blade of grass. It's just cement. And it's actually 2 duplexes on one lot and then cement. And the oil tank was buried underneath. And he drilled and he's like, oh, yeah, this is probably decommissioned because I'm going right to the top of it. And it feels like there's sand down there. And but we were like, we don't want to take the risk. Bank, you got to take it out. And they're like, OK, we'll take it out. And 2 months go by and they're like, nope, sorry, we're not going to take it out. I'm like, what? We just waited 2 months and you're telling us this now? So then we go back and we're like, okay, if you're not going to take it out, give us $50,000 back at closing. And they came back to us and they said, we're not going to give you $50,000 back, but we'll lower the listing price by $50,000. So it went from $480,000 to $430,000. And then we did an oil sample test. So we drilled around the oil tank and we did soil samples to make sure it wasn't leaking or anything like that. And there was no like residual oil down there. And the test came back clean. So we're like, okay, we mitigated our risks pretty well. Let's go ahead and close on this deal.
All right. So hang out, because I think people don't necessarily understand this. There are certain things in certain geographies that set off alarm bells. And in New Jersey, when you buy and sell houses, invariably attorneys are involved, which isn't the case everywhere else in the country. And for whatever reason, in New Jersey, if you have an oil tank and it's in the ground, nobody will buy your house. It's almost like a rule. And so you literally have to struggle through this whole oil tank issue. Even if the oil tank was properly decommissioned, you may still run into an issue. And we did that because I had to sell an estate a few years ago in Jersey. And the oil tank became a massive issue that took us 6 months to close. They had the EPA in there. They had to do samples. And the worst part is the inspector from the township is the one who approved the decommissioning, was the same one who is now causing us trouble 10, 15 years later because all of a sudden the rules had changed. Now, when you have an oil tank in Jersey, everyone just rips them out versus decommissioning them because the rules changed about what is acceptable to all of these attorneys. And the fact of the matter is, you got a 20-year-old oil tank that is empty after all these years. What difference does it really make? But yet they all fight. Welcome to New Jersey. But it saved you $50,000 and the oil tank's still there, right?
It is, because it's under concrete. That's where the driveway is. There was no sense in ripping it up. We'll find out, I guess, if we made a mistake, but we mitigated our risks, so I'm pretty confident we'll be fine.
And so when you go to sell, I can assure you the next buyer is going to probably go through the same kind of issue that you're probably going to go through the same issue as a seller.
If we were ever to sell, we would rip it out first, but I have no intentions of selling it. It's a cash cow. The cash flow on it is insane. While we live there, we're making $20,000 in net cash flow a year on it.
Let's talk about that. You bought the house for $430,000. You mortgaged it. You put down about $50,000, and now, so you're renting 3 of the units, correct?
Correct.
So how much are you bringing in rent?
We live in the first unit. The second unit, we actually allowed my wife's parents to move into, and we gave them kind of a good deal at $1,000 a month. It really should be renting at least $1,500, but we gave them $1,000 a month. And then unit 3, we have rented at $1,815 a month, $1,815 a month. Unit 4, we have rented at $1,735 a month. In total, it's around like $4,500 a month rent coming in while we live in one of the units for free.
And then how much is your mortgage payment and all of that?
Mortgage payment is $2,018 a month. So that's $24,000 a year. That's not including property tax or insurance. Property tax is right under $12,000 a year, $12,000 a year. So $1,000 a month. And then insurance is $1,500 a year.
You're living for free. How much would you have to pay for your apartment if you had to rent it?
Our apartment, personally, we'd probably rent for around $2,000 a month.
So you're saving $2,000 a month, plus you're making money.
Right.
$1,000 a month, and you're helping your wife's parents.
And we're helping our wife's parents, correct.
That is massive, stackable wealth as far as I'm concerned. Because you could even move out. And I'm not saying that you should do this, but if people say, I don't want to live in a fourplex and I don't want to do this, here's the thing. He could rent his apartment for $2,000 a month, take $2,000 a month, and go do something else. Like he could go rent somewhere else or buy somewhere else or do whatever you wanted to live however you chose to live if you made that decision.
Yep.
That's a pretty phenomenal deal.
Every time we went to visit the house before buying it, it was flooded with investors. You know, there'd be like 10 or 15 people walking the property because it was completely vacant. So they were walking the property and looking at it, trying to get in. And I'm sure they were just waiting for that 13th day where they could submit their offer in. But, you know, we were the only ones that could, me and two others were the only ones that submitted offers.
And I'm assuming you outbid the other two.
I think so. It was listed at $475. We offered $480. So $5,000 we're asking.
Okay. And that was smart. And then afterwards you renegotiate. And I did that. I've done that on some of our deals that we took is you get the deal up front and then sometimes you have to renegotiate later. And the other way that you catch deals, and I'm just because we caught one like this at one time too, is a lot of times during that window, a buyer will come in like yourself and then something will happen and that buyer will drop off. Well, as soon as that buyer drops off, the window no longer applies, right? Especially if the buyer drops off like 2 weeks later because they couldn't get financing, something happened, the deal fell through. And the key is at that point is speed, because if the buyer drops off and you're ready to step in, and that's where relationships come in. If you happen to have good relationships with all these realtors, they're going to know ahead of time, hey, this deal is about to fall apart. You step in with the matching offer immediately, and you can beat all those 15 other guys who were walking around the property because before they even blink, your offer is in and you're into the deal.
Mm.
It's understanding the marketplace and how things work.
Right.
You bought the house. Was it perfect? Did you have to do work?
Yeah, we bought it completely vacant, so no one was living there. One issue was the holding cost on this thing. You know, there was no rental income coming in, and there was work that needed to be done. The bank had done a lot of like painting and looking pretty and things like that, but we needed to, you know, we pretty much replaced every single kitchen in that place and put in new flooring. There was a lot of work. We needed to like patch sidewalks, patch the driveway. So there was a decent amount of work that had to be put in. We also put in a centrally located coin-operated washer dryer for all the tenants to use because previously there had been no laundry. So we added a lot of value and then, you know, brought all the rents or were able to rent it at market rents. But that took us close to 3 or 4 months. And the funny thing too also is like the day we closed on the house in October 7th, 2 days later, we had already booked a 3-week trip to go to Europe, backpacking through Europe. And the whole time we didn't think we were going to close the house because the whole oil tank situation. So we're like, oh, let's just book this trip and we'll go. And the whole time we're like 3 weeks, we're like, oh man, all these holding costs are stacking up. But anyway, we had a good time over there.
So who did the work? Did you do it yourself or did you pay people?
It was kind of a mix, but we did the majority of the work, but we did pay some of the contractors. Looking back, I would have paid a lot more contractors just to get it done quicker because, you know, we probably had like 5 months of holding costs where it was like vacant and we're not getting any rental income in. And, you know, that's, you know, probably $10,000, $15,000 there of holding costs that we could have just paid a contractor to get done quicker.
And so I think when you do these types of things, you need to run the numbers both ways to see, is it more effective to pay somebody? Plus, then you have the time to go do something else.
Right.
You went through, you got the work, you rented it out, and now it sounds like everything's cool. So is your wife now able to stay home since you have those things?
Right. So our son was actually 6 months old. Our eldest son was 6 months old at the time of closing on the property. So she was already on maternity leave. Like she had a whole year off from school. And so she just never went back. You know, we were making $50,000 gross rental income on top of living for free. That replaced her $50,000 salary. And so we felt very comfortable to have the financial freedom to make that decision to have her just be a stay-at-home mom and retire right then and there.
We will be back with Sonny in a moment. I really enjoy how Sonny has figured out to live in a high cost of living area by making some small choices, and his wife can stay home with the kids. Have you sat down and figured out how you could do this? That's the power of belonging to a community, getting help from others. Everything you need to learn can be learned for free. Sometimes we get stuck, and that's why having a coach to help you move forward and change from just being a dreamer to someone who takes action. The choice is always yours, and a dream session with me can help propel you forward faster. Email me at rocky@richyoursoul.com to begin a conversation. It's amazing what you have available to you right now in front of you that you may not realize, that allow you to achieve the life of your dreams. Now, let's get back to our amazing conversation with Sonny and how he's living the life of his dreams. And so you go to Europe with a baby?
Yeah. So we had 3 weeks in Europe. We landed in London and we went all the way to Austria and just backpacking through Europe. We didn't take anything but carry-on this trip. So it was just me holding a huge hiking backpack and her with a little backpack with the baby carrier. So we didn't have a stroller, car seat or anything, just a baby carrier and our little 6-month-old looking out the whole time on this incredible journey.
How do you do that? Because I know most people who have a baby, just to go anywhere with their kid, they fill up the whole car with a million things.
Right. I don't know. We were very intentional. I think I only brought one pair of pants. I did have leggings because this was October. So some parts of Austria were very cold in Germany, and a wool sweater. So we got like good wicking things. And again, we only paid for one hotel night during that whole trip. We were staying with friends and families all throughout different countries and things like that. So we were doing it very cheaply. And we would just use their sink to wash these wool things and then hang them to dry. And by morning, they would dry. So we had like a lot of socks, underwear, but this is all synthetic things that dry quickly. And we were very intentional about what we packed and being as minimal as possible.
And it's true. I don't think people realize most of your friends didn't have dryers in their houses, did they?
No, because they were like little apartments.
And in Europe, people don't have dryers. They wash in a washing machine and then they hang it out on their little patio or in the place. And it's just a different way of living.
Yeah.
You've kind of got yourself settled. You've got a house. Your wife is able to stay home and raise your kids. What happened next?
We did a very good job at this thing. We liked all our tenants. Everything was working really well. We were very intentional about picking our tenants too. You know, we're living on this property. We want good tenants. So we did, background checks, credit score checks. We used a free service called cozy.co. And, we did online rental applications through there. We collect rent through there, all for free. And we would do open houses because we didn't want to be on these tenant schedules. So we had open houses Saturday, Sunday, and on a weekday. And we'd have huge groups come in because it was a very desirable area in New York City next to train stations, bus routes. And so we had a huge pool to select from. We had great tenants. And so, after about a year and a half, we were cash flowing well. We still had good reserves and we were like, okay, we got to do another deal. So then we found a 3-family property and we actually found it off Craigslist. And it was just also in the New York City area. And we bought it for $350,000, a 3-family house off Craigslist for sale by owner.
Same type of process as far as what you had to do to get it rented and so forth?
This one, we had to inherit 2 tenants. One of the units was vacant.
How is that working out for you, numbers wise?
Actually, it's rented to a friend at this point for $1,400 a month. 2 bedroom, and 1 bedroom. And unit 2 is $1,500 a month. Unit 3 is $1,200 a month. So a total of $4,200 a month coming in.
And what's your outflow look like for that property?
Total expenses, including about $3,000 a year for like vacancy and maintenance costs, we're talking around like $35,000 a year in expenses. That includes mortgage, property tax, insurance, maintenance, and utilities. And we're getting in around $50,000 a month. So not that great in terms of cash flow, maybe $15,000 a year we're bringing in from it.
But it's an extra $1,200 a month that you can use as you choose to live life.
In 30 years, we'll have a free and clear property that's paid for itself, courtesy of the tenants.
That is correct. So it's a long-term game. As far as when you play real estate, you're waiting till your properties are paid off and then you have it free and clear. And you're still relatively young. So that's a great retirement plan that's almost guaranteed.
And we bought it for $350,000, but right now we're actually having an appraisal on Monday, but I'm trying to get a $120,000 home equity line of credit on it. And I'll get that home equity line of credit and I'll be able to use that $120,000 to buy our next property, and that's coming from this house. We did add money to this house, but that money came from the cash out refinance we did on this Garfield house. So we're just like rolling it over, buying more properties, getting a more cash flow, and then having more assets that are gaining equity as tenants pay them down.
And you're still continuing to work, right?
Yes, I work full time as a mechanical engineer for the Department of Defense.
Okay. So what's the big plan for you? Do you have a number of places that you want to buy? Do you have a bigger picture for that?
At this point, we're pretty ready to buy, I wouldn't say a place of our own, like our dream home or anything like that. But, the property we live in, the 4-family, doesn't have a blade of grass. I have a almost 4-year-old now and a 2-year-old. We need a backyard. And so we're probably going to buy at least a 2-family because we want our parents-in-law to come with us as well. But I don't know, I'd love to continue to build a portfolio. So we're looking for ideally a 3 or 4 family property just with grass. And that's what we're looking for. Continue to grow the portfolio, but have something that's more conducive for our family.
And that's fair. Do you think you'll keep buying more and more, or do you think 3 or 4 properties is enough for you?
Right. So I think 3 or 4 is enough. I don't need to build an empire. I'm just looking to live freely, live with freedom, and, have my financial independence. I don't need to be a billionaire or anything like that. I'm just fine with the freedom. And already with just these 2 properties, it's 7 units. And if we were to pay the mortgage, just the mortgage accounts for $40,000 a year between the 2 properties. So if we could get rid of that, we're already netting, $21,000 a year or so while we live for free in one of the units. If we get rid of that additional $40,000 a year in mortgage, that's $61,000 a year. Plus we live for free in one of the units. And say we move out, like you said, we get rid of that. We rent out that $2,000 unit. That's an additional, $24,000 a year. So that's $84,000 a year coming just from these 2 rental properties if we were to pay down the mortgage. So we could live, how frugal we could live very comfortably off $84,000 a year.
And that you can, especially if you move out of the New York area.
Right. Yeah. We could just pay these down, and I calculated I could do it if we were very intentional about it and stopped investing in our retirement, maxing out our retirement accounts. We could do it in 7 years. So in 7 years, I could quit my job, be financially free just from these 2 properties.
And you'd be 35.
35. Yep.
That's cool. So what are you going to do to teach your kids about money now?
We've already been a little intentional about it. I loved how my parents were very open about their finances. They didn't have a lot of money, but they weren't like, oh, hush, hush, we don't talk about money at the dinner table or anything. It was always, money was an open subject. And I think that was very important for my growing up. So we do kind of the same thing. And our son, he's only 3 now, but he helps us a little bit with the rental properties. We were able to start his Roth IRA. We said he was a baby model at our rental properties to encourage families to move in, long staying families. So my CPA approved it, and we, started his Roth IRA with $1,000 in a Vanguard retirement account, which is, tax-free earnings for the next 60 years of his life. So that's just going to grow and grow and grow, and it'll be tax-free for him to take out. But anyway, he also helps us out with the rental properties. We have coin-operated washing machines at both properties, and he helps roll the quarters. And every time he rolls a $10 pack of quarters, we give him a quarter. And just yesterday, he really wanted to get a Mack truck at Walmart, and anything he wants like that, it's not a need, he's going to buy. So he really wanted this Mack truck at Walmart, and we thought it was $10. So he was like, okay, how many more quarters do I have to roll to get $10? So he's busy all morning rolling quarters. And then we actually go to Walmart, but sadly it wasn't $10. It was $15. So he was all sad. He's like, oh, I can't buy that. But as a 3-year-old, he's starting to understand pricing. He knows that, that $1 Hot Wheels car is going to be a lot cheaper than that big $15 Mack truck. And he's starting to get a comprehension of money, value of things, and just as a 3-year-old. And I think that's kind of incredible.
It is incredible. I know we started our kids when they were about 5 with the allowance. And I know the one regret I think I had was not having them do more work for their money. But the reality is young kids understand the concept of money and work and how this goes together. And you've got to allow your kids the opportunity to experience that instead of just handing them money all the time.
Right.
So what are you going to do for college for your kids?
I definitely am taking the same stance as my dad. I am not pushing them towards college at all. I will teach you entrepreneurial skills. I'd feel like I'd much rather have them be investors, entrepreneurs, make their own living, be their own boss, live out their own dreams instead of making someone else rich. Make yourself rich, and give him the skills to do that. And if he wants to go to college, I wholeheartedly support him, but I will not push him in that direction. And I just think, he's 3 now. 15 years from now, college is going to be a completely different environment. All these online classes are already coming up. You can get all better education than you could in college on YouTube, I feel, if you really devote yourself. And I just think that's just going to be more and more pervasive, as in 15 years, it's just going to be a completely different atmosphere.
It will. You're not going to make your kid the next YouTube unboxing star.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I'd be open to it if he wants to do that, but
It is amazing the opportunity that's out there and the things that are available to people should they want to do something different. And you do something else that's kind of cool that's different, and I'd like to chat about it. You call them micro adventures. Can you share what they are and what they're like?
Yeah, so Micro Adventures is like a midweek camping trip in the middle of the work week. What we do is like on a Tuesday evening, leave work, and I'll meet up with my friends who I haven't seen, because we're all busy lives. We all have, we're all parents with kids, but we can sacrifice a weeknight away as opposed to using a precious weekend day from our family. So we'll leave, Tuesday night from the workplace, and then some of us don't work in the same place, and we'll meet up in the woods. So we have a great state park near us. We'll meet there. We'll just camp out for the night, have a great cookout, we'll have a huge fire, and just sleep in the woods. And then we'll wake up in the morning at 5 a.m. or something, and all head our separate directions to our workplace, smelling of fire and things like that. But it's just a great way for us to connect it's just guys, but just connect as guys and find out, how we're doing in our lives, and just reconnect as friends and not take away too much time from our families. Usually our wives are okay with 1 weeknight away a month or every 2 months or so.
And that's cool. You have something you want to accomplish, and you figure out a unique and different way to make it happen, which is really cool.
Yeah, and it's not something I invented. I think they've been doing it in Europe for a while, but yeah, we really enjoy it. It's just this great time to have great food cooked over a fire and just talk as men and traunch into the woods and have a good time.
One other unique thing, you've never paid for a haircut. How did you pull that off?
If you could see me now, I have a buzzed haircut. My mom, all growing up, just cut my hair. All of our hairs, there's 4 of us growing up. So you add, you pay $10 a haircut. That's $40 for all of us. So it was just a way to be frugal. She would cut all our hair. And then when I got married, I just asked my wife, hey, do you want to cut my hair? And she's like, I guess I can. And that's just kind of how it goes. And right now I just use a buzzer, and it's really quick. She just buzzes my hair and I go from short to long. So I like to save time too. So I just do it every 2 or 3 months. She just buzzes my hair off. I'm working a pretty high level job, close to 6 figures, project manager, and I'm interfacing really well. But a buzzed haircut, I feel like, is perfectly acceptable and fine. And that's just the way we live.
So what do people at work say about you?
I don't know. I guess they're unsure because I also like run at lunch. I'm the only, we're all wearing dress collared shirts because I'm kind of in a higher position now with pants. And I like to run at work. I feel like fitness is very important. I have a goal to be able to be faster than my son until he's at least 15. Once he's 15, I'll let him go. He can beat me. But until then, I want to be as physically fit to do whatever I want with him. Go on hikes, go on adventures. So anyway, I keep up running, and I run at least twice a week, and I don't want to take away time from my family. So I run during my lunch hour. And I'll just leave from my work building. I'll run around for just 2 miles, and I'll try to do it in under 15 minutes. People are like, you run at work? And they all think it's kind of weird and crazy.
If you do what everyone else does, you'll end up like everyone else. If you do something different and you change the way that you live life and you get outside of what society says you have to do, then you get to live a life of freedom and have money and have the things you want without worrying about what other people think.
Yep.
Is there anything else that we should have talked about or that you find interesting to share that we didn't get a chance to cover today?
I 3D printed a grenade launcher at work, which was kind of cool. It was the world's first 3D printed grenade launcher. It was one of my bigger projects. And it was actually a pretty big deal because it got picked up by like Fox News and Popular Mechanics. That was a fun project I did.
Very cool. We always like to ask, based on our conversation today, what's one action step people can take to move forward this week?
Yeah, so I feel like a lot of people come to me because I'm pretty open about, what I do with real estate investing. And they're all like, yeah, but how'd you get started? How'd you save all this money to, have the down payment and renovation costs? I can just barely live paycheck to paycheck. I'm like, you have dual incomes and, I only had one income and we were able to grow this portfolio. But anyway, I feel like it's so important to really like measure your finances. So I feel like one action step is to really know where you are and start measuring your finances. I like to use personalcapital.com, and it does a really good job of, looking at all your savings accounts, your bank accounts, your brokerage accounts, your retirement accounts, and like calculating your net worth. But I've also kind of developed my own financial spreadsheet, and it gives you a really good picture of, all your recurring expenses as well as your budgeted expenses and your liabilities, your assets, and just your overall financial picture, all in like one easy to view 1-page spreadsheet. And I would recommend just filling out that spreadsheet and really getting a good picture. Sit down with your spouse, or if you're single, just look at your own picture. It'll also tell you like how close you are to financial independence, how much passive income you have over your expenses. And, maybe you have a goal to be out of debt. It'll tell you how many years you need to get there based on your annual savings rate and things like that.
And I think it's important. I always track my numbers. You have to track the numbers because if you don't understand where your money's going and where it's flowing and how it's working, then it's going to kind of do what it wants. And you'll be wondering at the end of the month, where did it all go? And so you have to be intentional with that. So I highly recommend that as well.
And I feel like when you track your numbers, especially if you do it well and you're living frugally and you start to see your savings rate creep up and you start to see your net worth go from like $100,000, $200,000. And then last month, we hit that $500,000 mark. And it's such a wow, this is awesome. We're buying our freedom and it's worth it because, we just reached half millionaire status at me, 28 years old. And it just gives you all the encouragement to keep going forward. And I think you see that growth, but you can only see that growth if you're tracking it. So that's why I agree. It's so important.
Very true. Very, very true. It's time to learn the secrets of life. What's your secret to living an abundant life?
I really feel like it's living with intention. I feel like I always live my day with intention. We don't have a TV screen in our house. We decided very early on we don't want a TV. So since we've been married, we haven't had a TV just because we want to live out all our lives. We don't want to be brainwashed in front of the TV, brainwashed by ads that we need to buy this or this status symbol. And we just lead our lives with intention. Like I said, I have these daily routines that I know I need to be comfortable with where I'm at, to have integrity with myself, and to live a purposeful, meaningful life. I run twice a week. I always, when I have a spare commuting, I read audiobooks, podcasts, constantly developing in my mind, constantly developing myself. And I feel like every day I wake up an hour earlier than I need to, at least an hour earlier than I need to constantly build towards what I want to go towards. I have 2 kids, so it's hard to do everything I want to do. But as long as I take one tiny step every day towards my goals, I'm happy. I always try to be very intentional about what I'm doing, how I'm spending my time, and living my life the way I want to live and be completely with integrity with myself.
And that's important, knowing what you want in life and then living in balance with what you choose to be your life and making sure that you are intentional. And the word integrity fits that very, very well. I think that's important. And first off, you have to know what that is. So these next 2 questions might be a little bit difficult, only because you're so young. So the question is, what did you learn later in life that you wished you would have learned sooner?
So I guess if I had known more about real estate investing, I feel like I possibly could have just skipped the whole college thing. And honestly, I think that might have been a good thing for me. I mean, I'm glad of everywhere I'm at, of everything I'm at, but I feel like if I was able to, if I had mentors or friends who were into real estate investing, I knew that world existed. I'm so entrepreneurial. You know, I used to snow shovel. I used to sell candy and things like that. I would have had a business that I could see that could be scalable and gotten into it early on and foregone 5 years of my life going through college and just done something that I was super passionate about and something that was super scalable. Perhaps that would have been something that would have been a cool diversion in my life or a separate path.
And that's true. I think everyone thinks you have to go to college to have success. And today with so many colleges, I know that Stevens now is probably like 50, 60 grand a year with housing. It's $250,000. And for a lot of people, there are better ways to spend $250,000 and much better paths to take in life. So I'm going to change this last question up ever so slightly because I think it would make more sense for you. If you had to leave your kids one piece of advice, what would it be?
Yeah, I feel like what's been most pivotal in my life is the advice of just living below your means. Just because you make $500,000 a year as a doctor, there's no reason you have to be spending $500,000 a year. Anyone can make money. Anyone can save money. It's just if you spend as much as you make, then you're never going to save money. So I feel like having that mindset growing up, our expenses growing when I was making $50,000 and now $100,000 has not changed. We've kept it consistent. We haven't inflated our cost of living. We found frugal ways to enjoy life. Our micro adventures cost us, we pay $8 per person shopping at ShopRite to go on these micro adventures for the food. We go hiking all the time as a family. So we find cheap, wholesome activities that we love doing that give us a unique experience when we go traveling. We love to stay with friends and family. I mean, it's cheap too, but we also kind of get their own unique local flavor for what we should be checking out and things like that. And we get to develop that relationship. So just, I don't know, I guess for us, it's living below our means, but kind of doing it awesomely.
And that's true. You're never going to have financial success if you don't live below your means. You can make $1 million a year and go bankrupt. And there's plenty of stories of people who have. You've got to create that spread. And the bigger the spread, the faster you have freedom, the more you get to live life on your terms instead of societal terms and do what you want. And you're enjoying life. You're happy. It comes through. And you have the ability to do that instead of following what everyone else tells you that you should do. If people would like to find you, learn more about you, and connect, where can they do that?
So I've been running a blog for the last 3 years, famvestor.com. It's like family investor, FAMVESTOR.com. And I just have a blog with a ton of articles about a lot of our journey in pursuing financial freedom, but also kind of creating strong families because we really, both of us, feel very committed to making our family really strong. And that's our number one purpose. And we're using financial independence to help us do that. And we'd love other people to get there as well. So we try to teach all our friends and just love teaching people about financial independence.
And I encourage people to check that out. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Rocky. Glad to be here.
I really enjoyed how Sonny keeps finding a way forward to his dream life. He figured out college, lives way below his means, can have his wife stay at home, and gets to backpack across Europe, all before the age of 30. How? Because he was intentional. He removes so much excess from his life and keeps it simple. It's a wise plan. This week's action step was know your numbers. I'm linking to 2 short videos and spreadsheets that show you how to figure out your numbers if you don't already have a system. By tracking your finances and being intentional, you can build tremendous wealth. What dreams do you have that you want to take action on? Start being intentional and figure it out. And figure out how to do it without spending a lot of money. You can learn so much for free these days. Check out the many meetup groups that are going on everywhere to help you learn. I belong to so many different groups, and they help me be exposed to ideas that I might not have thought about. People also who've created their own success and who are willing to share their stories, and also just the encouragement to keep me going. If you're still listening, you must have liked this episode, so please share it with a few friends. It can start a great conversation, and I'd appreciate that. You can also connect with me on Facebook, either on the Richer Soul Facebook page or in the Facebook group for Richer Soul. Both of those give you a place to have conversations with other members and other listeners. What's preventing you from moving forward, and who are you putting on your team to help build the life you deserve? Taking no action creates a far worse outcome in life than trying something and failing. Can I help you achieve your goals through coaching and accountability? Just email me. We can start with a short chat to see if we're a good fit. For many people, one session allows them to take a giant leap forward towards their dreams. You can always get me at rocky@richersoul.com. I'd love to hear how you're doing and how the information I've shared has helped you. Thanks for listening. Have an abundant week.